The sun was bright that day, but inside the glass-walled conference room of Hale Industries, the atmosphere felt heavy enough to crush a man's chest. Armin Reyes stood silently near the back of the room, dressed in a clean but faded button-up shirt, the kind that still held creases from being air-dried overnight. He should have looked out of place among the shining suits and polished shoes, yet something in his posture, steady and unshaken, made him stand out more than all of them. Most of the executives didn't even know his name. They only knew him as the single father who worked in the warehouse downstairs, the man who walked to work every day and took extra shifts just to cover school fees and hospital payments. But today, everything was about to change. Not because of luck. Not because of pity. But because sometimes the quietest person in the room has already endured enough storms to build wings of their own. And when those wings unfold, the sky does not look so unreachable anymore. Armin had not always been struggling. Before life rearranged itself, before hospital corridors and bills and sleepless nights became his routine, he had once built things that flew. Literally. He used to work with a small aviation engineering company that specialized in personal rotorcraft. He had been one of the lead designers on a model that promised to revolutionize emergency transport. But when his wife, Aisha, fell severely ill, everything changed. Medical treatment drained every resource, every savings, and every sleepless night. The project faltered due to funding withdrawal, and eventually, the company collapsed entirely. After his wife passed, Armin was left alone with his little daughter, Nuria, a bright-eyed 7-year-old who saw the world with softness he feared it would steal from her one day. He moved to a smaller city to start over, working wherever he could. The warehouse job at Hale Industries paid enough to keep the lights on and food on the table, even if it left little room for dreams. Hale Industries was known for its scale and its power. Victor Hale, the CEO, was a man of immense influence. His success was routinely praised, his leadership idolized, his lifestyle envied. He was the kind of man who made wealth look effortless, though whispers suggested that the deeper foundations of his empire were not always built on integrity. His wife, Serena, on the other hand, was known for grace and poise, appearing in charity galas and youth development events. She was the public warmth to Victor's polished coolness. Yet behind their reputations, their marriage had cracks no magazine profile could hide. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. A critical logistics error had held up a multi-million-dollar shipment, threatening an international contract. Executives scrambled, consultants were called, and the warehouse floor buzzed with tension. Armin, who had quietly studied the blueprints and layout of the company's entire distribution network during his breaks just to understand the flow of things better, saw the problem clearly. He approached his floor manager, who dismissed him with a tired wave. Yet when the shouting upstairs intensified, and tensions turned desperate, Armin asked for 5 minutes in front of anyone who could authorize a solution. He spoke with calm precision. He pointed out where the bottleneck originated, how the GPS route had been incorrectly synced, and how a reroute could be executed manually in under 30 minutes. The room fell silent. Someone asked him how he knew all that. He simply said he paid attention. The solution worked. The shipment was saved. The company avoided disaster. That is how Armin found himself standing in the same room as the CEO for the very first time. Victor Hale watched him with a narrowed gaze, as though trying to decide whether Armin was a useful tool or a potential inconvenience. Serena was there, too, seated quietly beside her husband, observing more than she spoke. She noticed details. The worn sleeves, the dark circles under his eyes, the hands that had built and repaired and held on far longer than most men ever had to. Victor offered Armin a temporary consulting role in logistics strategy. The pay increase was significant. It felt like a miracle. Armin went home that day and cried in the kitchen while stirring lentils on the stove, his daughter hugging him around the waist, asking if they were going to be okay now. He told her yes, and for the first time in years, he believed it. Months passed. Armin showed skill and intuition that surprised everyone. People higher up asked where he had studied. He never boasted. He only said he had learned through experience. But one afternoon, as Victor reviewed expense reports, he noticed something peculiar. A private aviation prototype purchase years ago had been tied to Armin's old company. The name clicked. Realization dawned. The quiet warehouse worker had been one of the aerospace engineers behind one of the most innovative aircraft designs of the decade. Victor's expression darkened with something like envy mixed with suspicion. People with talent were useful, yes. But they were also threats if not controlled. Victor arranged a private meeting, inviting Armand to discuss a new opportunity. Serena attended as well, out of habit or perhaps curiosity. The meeting was scheduled for the corporate penthouse, where the air smelled of imported wood polish and the windows looked down on a city that glimmered like a polished coin. Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. He presented a contract that appeared generous at first glance. Yet the fine print revealed everything. Armand's designs were being reclassified as company-owned intellectual property, and his independence would be gone. His ideas would belong to Hale Industries. Armand read the pages slowly. His chest was heavy, but not with fear. With clarity. He closed the folder gently. He explained that when his aviation company collapsed, he had salvaged one thing: the prototype helicopter he had personally built, modified, and improved in his spare time. Piece by piece. Night by night. That helicopter was his. Legally. Mechanically. Spiritually, Victor laughed, dismissing it as an exaggeration or delusion. A warehouse worker owning a helicopter? Impossible. Then they heard it, the rhythmic pulse of rotor blades cutting through the sky. Not loud. Steady. Controlled. A sound that did not ask permission to be believed. The meeting room's windows shook faintly. Serena turned her head sharply toward the view. Her face, composed and elegant until that second, drained completely of color. The aircraft was descending onto the private helipad adjacent to the penthouse, piloted remotely for landing. Sleek. Polished. Compact. Beautiful. Nothing like a corporate machine. Something human-made, with love and brilliance in every curve. Armand stood slowly and walked to the window, pointing toward it with calm steadiness. That's my helicopter outside. The room went silent. Serena's voice, when it finally emerged, was soft and trembling. She asked how he had managed to finish building something like that while working shifts and raising a child alone. Armand did not speak of the late nights, the exhaustion, the raw determination born of grief and hope. He simply said that when you have someone you love to live for, you do not stop just because the world tells you to. Serena's eyes glistened. Something in her had cracked open. A memory. A loss. A dream she once had before her marriage became a gilded cage. She excused herself and stepped out of the room, needing air. Victor tried to follow, but she raised a hand to stop him, and he froze. What followed was not a dramatic outburst or a triumphant monologue. It was quiet. There are moments in life where everything shifts without sound. Serena later requested a private conversation with Armand, where she told him she wanted to invest in his craft, not to own him, but to support him. She had once believed in helping people build real futures, and she wanted to return to that. She wanted to do something meaningful again. Armand accepted. Not out of dependence, but mutual respect. Within 2 years, the new rotorcraft model designed by Armand and supported by Serena launched successfully. It was used in rural medical evacuations, disaster relief zones, and isolated regions where road access was impossible. It saved lives. Real lives. That mattered more than any profit margin. Nuria grew up watching her father not just survive, but rebuild. She learned that grief could shape you but did not have to define you. She learned that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it simply keeps moving, quietly, day after day, and people who had once overlooked Armand, who walked past him in corridors or barely acknowledged his presence, now spoke of him with admiration. Some even used the word genius. Yet he remained the same man who still packed lunch for his daughter, still fixed appliances for neighbors who could not afford repairs, still stopped to pick up a fallen grocery bag for a stranger. Because kindness does not fade when success arrives. It simply grows roots deeper. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. It truly helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world that compassion still matters.